The city bustled with life, cars honked, hurried footsteps echoed, and conversations blended into a distant hum. Amidst the chaos, Maya sat on the cold pavement outside a small bookstore, her frail hands gripping a cardboard sign, "Anything helps. God bless." Her clothes, tattered and layered, barely shielded her from the biting wind. Each passing stranger glanced but moved on, eyes avoiding hers as if she were invisible. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, exhaustion weighed on her body, but the worst part was the loneliness. Another day, another struggle, until a shadow stopped in front of her, breaking the cycle. The street was alive with noise, cars speeding by, people rushing past, lost in their own world. Then, a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Whispers spread through the crowd, heads turned, and phones discreetly came out. Snoop Dogg had arrived. Dressed in a stylish jacket, fresh sneakers, and sunglasses, he walked with an effortless coolness, scrolling through his phone as if unaware of the attention. Maya noticed the change but didn't look up at first. She was used to being ignored. But something about the way he stood there, unhurried, made her take a chance. Gathering her courage, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can you spare $1?" Snoop paused mid-scroll. For a moment, he didn't move. Maya braced herself for rejection, another person pretending she didn't exist. Instead, he turned toward her, his expression unreadable. His deep-set eyes studied her, not with pity, but curiosity. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see what he would do. Maya felt her heart pound. Most people walked past her without a second thought. But this was different. This time, someone had actually stopped. The city was busy as usual, cars rushing by, people walking fast, talking on phones, lost in their own world. Then, something changed. A wave of whispers spread through the crowd. People turned their heads, some even pulling out their phones. Snoop Dogg had arrived. He walked casually, dressed in a stylish jacket, fresh white sneakers, and sunglasses. He scrolled through his phone, looking relaxed, unaware of the attention he was getting. Maya sat on the sidewalk, holding her cardboard sign. She was used to being ignored. People passed by without a glance, avoiding her as if she didn't exist. But now, someone different was near her. She hesitated. Asking for help was never easy. But this might be her chance. Taking a deep breath, she looked up and spoke softly. "Can you spare $1?" Snoop stopped. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, still, as if he hadn't heard her. Maya's heart sank. Maybe he would walk away like the others. But then, slowly, he turned toward her. His face was calm, unreadable. For the first time in a long while, someone had truly noticed her. Snoop looked at Maya for a moment, then asked, "What do you need it for?" Maya wasn't expecting that. Most people either ignored her or tossed a few coins without a word. No one had ever asked her this before. She hesitated, unsure how to respond. Finally, she mumbled, "A warm meal, maybe just some coffee." Her voice was soft, almost embarrassed. She wasn't asking for much, just something to ease the hunger that had become her daily reality. To her surprise, Snoop didn't just hand her money and walk away. Instead, he did something unexpected. He knelt down, bringing himself to her level. His eyes met hers, not with pity, but with understanding. The world around them seemed to slow down. The crowd, which had been whispering and taking pictures, grew quiet. Everyone waited, expecting him to simply give her some cash and move on. But Snoop didn't rush. He took his time, really looking at Maya, making her feel like she mattered. Maya swallowed hard. For years, she had felt invisible. But now, in this moment, someone was truly listening. Maya watched as Snoop reached into his pocket. She expected him to pull out a single dollar bill, maybe some loose change. That was all she had asked for. But when his hand emerged, he wasn't holding $1. Instead, he held a crisp $100 bill. Maya's eyes widened in shock. She stared at the bill, unable to believe what she was seeing. "Is this, for me?" she asked, her voice shaky. Snoop nodded and handed it to her. "This is more than just for coffee," he said, his voice calm but serious. "I want you to use it wisely." Maya's hands trembled as she took the money. She had never held that much at once in a long time. A simple meal had turned into something life-changing. The crowd gasped. Some whispered to each other, surprised by what they had just witnessed. Maya looked up at Snoop, tears forming in her eyes. No one had ever helped her like this before. She wanted to say something, "Thank you, why me, are you sure?" but the words wouldn't come. Snoop smiled slightly. "Promise me something," he said. "If I help you today, you have to help yourself tomorrow." Maya was still staring at the $100 bill in disbelief when Snoop reached into his pocket again. But this time, he didn't pull out more money. Instead, he took out a small notepad and a pen. He quickly wrote something down, then tore off the page and handed it to her. Maya hesitated before taking it, her hands still shaking. She looked at the paper. It was an address. Before she could ask, Snoop spoke firmly. "Go there tomorrow. Tell them I sent you." Maya frowned slightly, confused. "What is this place?" she asked. "It's a women's shelter," Snoop explained. "They can help you, food, a place to stay, even a job program. But you have to show up." Maya's heart pounded. She had heard of shelters before but had always been too scared or too ashamed to go. She looked up at Snoop. His eyes were serious, filled with something she hadn't seen in a long time, hope. The crowd around them watched in silence, waiting for her answer. Maya swallowed hard, gripping the paper tightly. This was more than just money. This was a chance to change her life. As Snoop stood up and walked away, the crowd remained frozen, still processing what had just happened. But some had already pulled out their phones, recording the entire moment. Within minutes, the video began spreading online. By the time Maya looked down at the $100 bill and the address in her hand, the internet had already started talking. The video went viral overnight. People shared it across social media, calling it one of the most touching acts of kindness they had ever seen. Some praised Snoop for his generosity, while others debated whether celebrities should do more to help the homeless. News outlets picked up the story. Headlines read, "Snoop Dogg's $100 gift sparks a movement," and "One small act of kindness is changing lives." But the biggest impact wasn't just online, it was in real life. Donations poured into the women's shelter that Snoop had sent Maya to. People, inspired by his kindness, started helping the homeless in their own cities. Some volunteered their time. Others donated clothes, food, and money. Maya had no idea her story had reached millions. She was too busy preparing for the first real chance she had been given in years. The next morning, Maya stood outside the shelter's entrance, gripping the small note Snoop had given her. She hesitated. Her old fears whispered in her mind, "What if they turn me away? What if I fail again?" But then she remembered Snoop's words, "If I help you today, you have to help yourself tomorrow." Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. A kind woman at the front desk greeted her. "You must be Maya," she said with a warm smile. "We've been expecting you." For the first time in a long time, Maya felt welcome. The shelter gave her a place to sleep, warm meals, and a fresh change of clothes. They connected her with a job program, helping her find work. Slowly, she began to rebuild her life. A few days later, one of the shelter staff showed her the viral video of her moment with Snoop. She watched as millions of people shared her story, calling it inspiring. But for Maya, the real change wasn't the attention, it was having a second chance at life. As she looked in the mirror, clean and hopeful, she whispered to herself, "I'm not invisible anymore." Maya stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing herself. Clean clothes, brushed hair, and clear eyes stared back at her. She looked stronger, healthier, and hopeful, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She took a deep breath, running her fingers over the fabric of her new jacket. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. It meant a fresh start. She thought back to that cold day on the sidewalk, the moment Snoop Dogg had stopped instead of walking past. He had given her more than just money, he had given her hope. Maya had spent months feeling invisible, like she didn't matter. But now, she felt seen. She whispered to herself, "I'm not invisible anymore." Outside, the world moved fast, cars honked, people rushed by, just as they always had. But this time, Maya was ready to re-enter society, not as a forgotten soul, but as someone who had been given a second chance. Because sometimes, one small act of kindness can change a life forever. And in Maya's case, it did.